Tons of news today. Let's start with this. We're seeing the RTX 4070 having a number of models dropping to $549 from the original list price of $599, so that's 8% below the original MSRP. Now, why would we finally be starting to see some price slipping on these models? Well, that is most likely in response to the launch of AMD's 7800 XT. And I've got some interesting news on that. Well, reviews have already been out for a while now, including my own. I'm always on the lookout for when 3D Center will do a big meta-analysis of a whole bunch of reviews from a wide variety of media outlets that run a whole bunch of tests, because any one reviewer can only has enough time to test so many games, so many resolutions. Everybody might be using a slightly different test configuration, that kind of stuff. So you'll get the most complete picture by comparing a lot of reviews. And so what they do here is they get the aggregate data for all of that. And interestingly, well, you can break it out test by test and everything here. Make myself tiny and out of the way. What we're going to look at here is mostly the final average result. So at 1080p rasterized, so non-ray traced performance, you can see how basically it's setting the 7800 XT as the baseline here. If you want to compare it to the 4070, the 4070 is reaching 97.7% of the performance of the 7800 XT in rasterized titles at 1080p once you average all of this data. However, the 4070 was priced at $600, which was 20% more expensive. 20% more expensive for 2% less rasterized performance obviously doesn't sound great. Of course, there is ray tracing performance, which we'll look at in a minute. Also, though, this gives you some interesting comparison data against some other GPUs, like, for example, the 6800 XT coming in at 96.4% of the performance of the 7800 XT, so confirming what a lot of other reviewers saw, which is the 7800 XT is faster, but just by a few percent, and that's here at 1080p. We can also see a variety of other cards stacking up here. We can see 1440p results, which I think at this price point is the more relevant results. And we can see as the resolution increases, the 4070 falls off by a little bit more, now reaching 95%. Still, that's basically a tie, not too far off. And again, you can see how the other cards stacked up here as well. And in 4K resolution, again, as the resolution increases, the 4070 falls off a bit more, now reaching 93.7% of the performance of the 7800 XT. And again, the 7800 XT maintaining a few percent lead over its 6800 XT predecessor as well. And we can see, again, a variety of how those all stack up. However, I think these would be a lot of the interesting comparisons to look at here, where they've got it kind of card by card here. So in this data, it looks like the 7700 XT versus the 7800 XT. We're confirming that while at 1080p, it's about a 14.1% difference. That does increase as the resolution goes up. So at 1440p, about a 17%, and 4K over 20% increase going from the 7700 XT to the 7800 XT. So it does seem to be confirming what I said in my review and a lot of other people did, which is the 7700 XT versus 7800 XT, it's 11% more money, but you're getting a lot more than 11% performance, plus 4 gigabytes extra VRAM. So again, I'm hoping this means that the 7700 XT will start to see its price go down a bit. Now, why would the 7700 XT maybe be priced a little bit too high right now? That might be to move stock on the RX 6800, which is still in stock in some regions at prices a bit, around $430 kind of dollar price point last time I checked, at least in the United States. And you can see that the 6800 and the 7700 XT perform very similarly. In these reviews, it looks like the 7700 XT is averaging in the 3 to 5% faster range at 1080p, at 1440p and 1080p, and about a wash at 4K. However, the 6800 does have more VRAM, which could serve you well in certain situations. Of course, the 7000 series does currently have HyperRX as an exclusive, with the new Anti-Lag Plus feature being the main thing on that right now, to reduce latency a bit better than we're seeing on the 6000 series, AV1 encoder, those types of things. But I wonder if as the 6800 stock completely sells out worldwide, if we could then maybe have some room for the 7700 XT to get down closer to that $400 mark and give a bit more price separation between the 7700 XT and the 7800 XT. That would be nice to see. Again, 6800 XT to 7800 XT, we are seeing in the 4%-ish performance jump going to the new generation, which isn't a lot. A lot of people see that as disappointing, but again, the 7800 XT is coming in at $500, which is well below the $650 MSRP of the 6800 XT. So generationally by MSRP, it is a more healthy generational performance jump. It's just in the current market, the 6800 XT was near the $500 point frequently. So it didn't do a massive shakeup to the market compared to what was available recently, but it is definitely an improvement. And here's that 4070 versus 7800 XT. Again, it's not a massive win, but the 7800 XT is winning, and if the 4070 is at that $600 price point, that's where that becomes a bit of a problem. Of course, if you do look at ray tracing performance, things do look more favorable to the 4070. However, this being the 1440p ray tracing data, now some games, this can vary wildly depending on which games you test and how heavy of ray tracing workloads you do. For example, in games like Cyberpunk with everything cranked, it could be 50% or more if you go to the RT overdrive mode. So that can shake things up quite a bit. However, in the overall average result here, they are showing the 4070 18.4% faster than the 7800 XT. However, if it was a $600 versus $500 price point, that would be 20% more money for the 4070 for 18.5% more ray tracing performance and a bit slower rasterized performance like we're seeing up here. But then you still do get some NVIDIA feature set advantages with, energy efficiency, DLSS upscaling, frame generation, those types of things. But I think all of this does explain why, that $100 price gap seems a bit much for the 4070. And at $549, now NVIDIA can still charge more, but it's close enough that people might think, okay, the feature set advantage, at least I think they'll have an easier time selling the 4070 here. Now, I would much rather see them both at $499, and then they'd be kind of the argument on a bit more rasterized power versus more ray tracing power and feature set, that kind of a thing. But anyway, that's what we're seeing there. Also, in upcoming GPU news, we're seeing some evidence that we might see a 7600 XT version. Remember, right now we just have the RX 7600. And right now there is a huge jump in both price and performance between the RX 7600 and the 7700 XT, with currently only AMD's previous generation cards filling that difference. Well, there could be a 10 gigabyte or maybe 12 gigabyte or something version of a 7600 XT coming in. However, that's certainly not guaranteed. What is this coming from? This is coming from PowerColor's EEC filing, where you'd be like trademarking your names and all that. And within the list here, we do see a 7600 XT with 12 gigabytes. And we also see a 7600 XT listed at 10 gigabytes. So is this just trademarking some names and nothing will come of it? Who knows? But that would certainly fill a large gap in price to performance between the 7600 and the 7700 XT. So there's a big place to fill there, and hopefully we do actually get something like that. That would be pretty cool. Now, if you saw that AMD had said there's no new ASICs coming for the 7000 series, that could still be true with this happening, because this wouldn't need to be a new ASIC, which I believe is the Navi 32, Navi 33, Navi 31. This would be it could be a cut down Navi 32, something like that. Anyway, in Intel GPU news, I saw this review at Puget Systems. All my sources will be in the video description today, by the way. And so you could take a closer look at this. I mostly focus on gaming performance, but I've been looking a lot into how Intel has improved over time. But what about in productivity workloads? Well, Puget Systems does great productivity workload testing, and they did a re-review in September of the A770 and A750. And while you can look into all their details if you follow the link in my description, their overall conclusion was, overall, Intel has seen good improvements in performance across a variety of content creation applications. Video editing was most improved, with Intel now beating NVIDIA in terms of price to performance for DaVinci Resolve and Premiere Pro. And Stable Diffusion, when using the Open Vino, V-I-N-O, I don't know, is that wine? Open, anyway, Vino, anyway, whatever, was also an area of strength for Intel, performing similarly to the RTX 4060. However, rendering both offline and real-time is still a weakness of the Intel cards. The A770 and A750 saw relative performance regression compared to the RTX 3060 in Unreal Engine benchmark, while both saw small improvements in Blender, which are insufficient to make up the gap in performance between them and NVIDIA. Tons of awesome testing and graphing and all that in here, but I'm not going to dwell on that now. But if that sounds like interesting data to look into in more detail, again, follow the sources. Now, this isn't directly like PC hardware related, but it is certainly affecting PC gaming in general. I'm sure you guys may have been seeing stories about this. I pulled up one of them here as a backdrop. This one at Eurogamer. Unity seems to be doing everything it can to make no one want to use the Unity engine anymore. And I just thought I'd do my part to raise awareness on this. So Unity revealed plans to change how they charge developers to charge per game install. Now you have to go past a certain, sales milestones and things like that and everything. But the point is, charging per game install sounds absolutely crazy. Imagine you have some little indie game that only charges a few dollars or something like that, and maybe it's 20 cents per install, and now somebody plays that game on their main gaming PC, their gaming PC in their living room, and their Steam Deck, and now you just maybe that's like 60 cents to the, it's just like, that's nuts. And then, what if, but the new review bombing method is just to install the game over and over again. It's even unclear if they could tell the difference between pirated copies of the game. It's very unclear how this would be tracked. There's so many problems with this. And I think the biggest problem overall is even if they walk this back, they were talking about implementing this change into games that already exist on the market. So they would suddenly have to start paying for installs. And if that happened, and if that was even legal, I don't know the details on that, that would be just feel terrible. A game you've already made and is still selling to suddenly have its pricing structure changed with the engine that you're using to charge per install. So I think it would be very difficult to see how Unity could regain any amount of trust from developers, even if they just canceled this whole thing, to just feel like you could use their engine and have a safe business model that they wouldn't just suddenly decide, and now you just need to pay us more money than you did before just because. So anyway, there's so many more details in all of this. This would be another one to follow up on, I think. Speaking of engines, though, Unreal Engine 5.3 is now officially available for download, and key enhancements are showcased in a new video. I don't think I'm going to get into all of those details. Nothing seemed like an incredibly mind-blowing new thing on the levels of like Lumen or Nanite, but it looks like some cool enhancements for people working on that kind of stuff. And speaking of Unreal Engine, how about Unreal Engine 5 games that had a lot of performance issues at launch? Looks like Remnant 2 has been updated, adding a potato mode. So one of my problems with the game at launch, when I was looking at its performance, is that I don't mind a game being extremely demanding at its highest settings, but there should be more scalability between low and ultra without just relying on resolution scaling to deliver that. The game has been patched. Now, I haven't had a chance to check out potato mode myself yet, but I think that's the idea, is to give it more scalability down to lower hardware. Also looks like it would improve maximum performance of high-end CPUs as well. So good to see those types of things happening. We also saw an update for Immortals of Aveum that improved some frame drops and stuttering and bug fixes, but maybe not completely solving absolutely all performance woes or anything. Now, how about Starfield? I mentioned this in my recent test of this patch, but Starfield did get a patch. Did not see a whole bunch of performance improvement off of this version 1.7.29, but perhaps the more interesting news that I'm throwing into my news video is that they have officially announced that NVIDIA DLSS support will come officially without the need for mods, but this didn't already happen in the recent patch. This is just mentioning that it is incoming. So DLSS, it's unclear if that will include frame generation or not, because this does not state it, will be coming. Now that does then bring up a bunch of questions. I saw comments asking me my opinion on this on my last video, asking, okay, does this mean that everybody falsely accused AMD and Starfield of blocking DLSS? And that this is evidence that that was not the case. And my only response is, we still can't know if this is evidence that one way or the other, because it's possible that AMD changed their mind, because I think that put them in a bad light and maybe even highlighted the differences in image quality between DLSS and FSR when people did the mod comparisons and all of that. So again, all I know is it's good to see it coming to the game. We really still don't know one way or the other exactly what was going on behind the scenes for it not to have been in the game at launch, but it certainly seemed rather suspicious leading up to it. And again, brightness and contrast controls, HDR calibration, field of view slider, 32:9 ultra-wide support, and an eat button for food. I guess previously everyone in the game was starving to death or something, I don't know. Anyway, so interesting stuff there. That's all looks like good stuff incoming, and if you guys continue to be interested in my testing, I can continue to test performance updates as they come in the game. And again, there is a mention here that we're working closely with NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel on driver support, and each update will include stability and performance improvements. So I could continue to track the same little benchmark run I've been doing over time on various patches to see how that changes. But, you know, you could just upgrade your PC, because that's what Starfield's director Todd Howard said when asked about why the game was not optimized for PC. And I mean, it's true. If you're on lower-end hardware, you might need to upgrade your PC. Whether that's justified with the image quality is a whole other question, but hopefully we do see performance increase over time with those patches. Now, in terms of other big-name games with big performance requirements, how about Cyberpunk 2077? We're seeing that the update version 2.0 and Phantom Liberty to be very CPU intensive on PC, natively supporting 8 cores now. Now, we're seeing quotes from the developer along the lines of, before release Cyberpunk 2077 2.0 and Phantom Liberty, please check conditions of your cooling systems in PC. We use all that you have, so workload on CPU 90% on 8-core is expected. To save your time, please run Cinebench or similar and check stability of your systems. So, people were also asking, does this mean that you will include the hyper-threading / simultaneously multi-threading more natively improved? Sometimes people would modify, like hex edit the game to get better support for that. And we're seeing the response that it will be natively supported, no more mod needed. Now, I'm very interested in what exactly will be the increase in CPU workload here, and also what exactly this means. Because does this mean the game will run worse on the same CPU you had before with the 2.0 update? Because what does that mean for people who have been playing Cyberpunk happily and now get the 2.0 update? Are they going to have problems on lower-end CPUs? Or does this mean that the game just takes better advantage of all the cores you have and would actually perform better now on a CPU that had lots of cores, but not necessarily worse on a CPU that had fewer cores? Question mark? I don't know. But this certainly would be a game that would be interesting for CPU benchmarking. The 1.0, the Cyberpunk, pre 2.0 patch, and then after 2.0 patch for sure. Also, when will we be getting the 2.0 patch, which should come out a little bit before Phantom Liberty? It's looking like it launches next week on PC and consoles. It looks like September 21st, so a little bit less than a week from today as of the time I'm filming this video. Now, in other news, we've been seeing Nintendo Switch 2 rumored specs and abilities. Rumors saying 12 gigabytes of RAM, ray tracing capabilities, and Unreal Engine 5 demo running with DLSS 3.1 on it, and the Unreal Engine 5 demo being the Matrix Awakens demo. I believe some of these clarifications, we had also seen maybe it was running DLSS 3.5. We're seeing that clarified to 3.1 by this individual who I don't track a lot of Nintendo leaks personally. However, this is apparently somebody who has revealed Nintendo information accurately before. And the idea is that a lot of this was probably shown off at Gamescom behind closed doors. And under like NDA agreements. Also, apparently, Nintendo Switch 2 was showing off running Zelda Breath of the Wild at 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. Whether that was involving, maybe DLSS upscaling to get there, question mark. Interesting. Maybe capable of better ray tracing than PS5, Xbox Series X, question mark. Well, that's all interesting stuff, but I think people will want to rein in expectations on all of this. Because even if this was running Matrix Awakens demo to press at Gamescom behind closed doors, we don't know the graphics settings it was actually running at was anything, resembling what we saw running on the, PS5 demo, for example. So this is, I don't know. I'm interested to see what can happen. I'm especially interested in DLSS. Because you can, DLSS can upscale from a very low resolution, like 720p or 1080p, and deliver a respectable, especially from a distance on your couch or on a small screen, a 4K output or something like that. So it will be interesting to see DLSS on a Nintendo Switch 2 if that does indeed come to pass. However, don't read too much into the DLSS 3, because a lot of people think that means frame generation, but that does not necessarily mean frame generation. And I have more doubts about the usability of frame generation if it indeed was supported on this handheld. First of all, you would need the optical flow accelerators, supposedly. And would they have that in the small chip? And also, it really works best at a high frame rate, which I'm not sure you would be hitting without it on the console anyway. So I don't know what to make all of this. We'll have to see. But I am certainly interested in what that could be capable of. And speaking of Nintendo Switch, how about the normal Nintendo Switch right now? Getting No Man's Sky with AMD FSR 2.0 support update. And it certainly does seem to be providing much less aliasing on the reconstruction of some images in the game. And it looks like there is a link you could follow here to a video showing it off, because in motion is when those types of upscalers are stressed the most. Also, we're seeing the Steam Deck dropping price for Steam's 20th anniversary back down to $359 again. So if you're, instead of thinking about going the Switch or Switch 2 route, thinking about going with the Steam Deck, or, why not buy both? You do get discounts available right now. Now, in some CPU news, we are seeing leaked numbers for Intel's Core i5-14600K, which is showing up with 14 cores and a 5.3 gigahertz boost. That is the same core configuration as the 13600K with 6P cores and 8E cores, although a slightly higher boost. This does appear to be an engineering sample in the hands of the Chinese outlet ECSM, and they've got some Cinebench numbers. Now, the video cards article, cards.com article that I have here, which again will be linked in my video description, did pull some Cinebench numbers from comparable 13600K results. However, I don't believe this is the reviewer running those same results on exactly the same system. They're saying that they're pulling the CPU-Z score for the 13600K from Guru 3D and the Cinebench 2324 from CG Director, meaning this is not as directly comparable as somebody literally running it in the same system. So I would definitely throw in a few more percent of, wiggle room on these results, but it's overall showing Cinebench R23 offering no improvement to single-threaded performance and 3% to multi-threading. However, seeing a bit better on the CPU-Z and Cinebench numbers here, although still single digits on single-threading uplift here. But again, given those results are pulled from different platforms, not the same run that was running the 14600K, I wouldn't read too much into that other than it seems to be confirming what we seem to already know, which is other than a very minor clock speed bump, the 14th gen does not look to be offering anything particularly interesting for gaming performance. And certain models may get more E-cores, which would be a little bit more interesting for productivity workloads. Now let's look at some GPU cooler models. It looks like MSI has launched an RTX 4090 and 4080 gaming Slim series. Now, Slim might mislead you into thinking that they would be small. However, they are smaller than what MSI was offering before. These are still 3-slot GPUs. Looks like the specific dimensions for the gaming Trio versus the gaming Slim are offered here, showing that it is indeed cut down in all dimensions some number of millimeters, but it is still, for example, a 322 millimeter GPU. Same thing with the 4080 gaming Trio. It looks like it's the same dimensions as the 4090 gaming Slim right there. So anyway, still very large GPUs, but they are a bit slimmed down. MSI launches a dual-fan RTX 4070 Ventus 2X in white. They already had the black version, so hey, there you go. More color options available. If you're also interested in black GPUs, this is at least interesting, although you'll never get to buy one. It's looking like we're seeing a RTX 3090 Super, which never saw the light. We did eventually get a 3090 Ti, but it looks like there was at least some kind of test-produced version of an RTX 3090 Super that has now been pictured, and that is all in black. But this will never see the light of day at this point on the actual market. But if you're looking for a high-end current GPU that will see the market on September 19th, there is always the RTX 4090 ROG Matrix version, which is liquid cooled and involves liquid metal in the cooling solution on the die. And apparently they do have a solution to allow it to still be vertical mounted and should not have leaking issues with the liquid metal spillage. So they do go into some detail on how all that liquid metal is factored in right here. And for those of you interested in Linux gaming on an AMD GPU, it looks like the RADV Radeon Vulkan drivers for AMD GPUs receive a long-awaited ray tracing performance boost. It looks like this had been, these changes had been submitted a long time ago, but it looks like the merge request has been pending for 5 months now, initially uploaded by open source developer Konstantin Swears. Anyway, while we haven't seen a, they're showing some of the before and after results, showing some performance boosts with this new driver update, and it's looking like with this merger, it will eventually get into some of the more mainline versions of Linux. I'm not a Linux user myself, so all those details and which versions get it and all that might be a little over my head, but you can jump into reports on this in my video description if needed for more information. And I hope all of you have an excellent day.